What's poppin', everybody? Welcome to the Omniest Podcast. This is episode 102. And this is going to be a very controversial, a very hard-hitting topic, I personally feel like, because this is a topic of discussion that you will not hear from your pastor. You will not hear from your loved ones. You won't hear this at a family gathering. We're going to give you the real top information here, like the real deep conversation that you want to have with somebody who is of a light mind. And you can't have this average conversation with just anybody, as you can tell by the title. And, if you read the description, I personally feel that this society and the system that we live in is teaching black people to accept being a little g. And what I mean by that is we have been taught to consider ourselves as inferior. And I'll use this example. Imagine somebody always writing your name, but with a lowercase at the beginning. Everybody's name gets depicted as, William with a capital W, James with a capital W, John, Matthew, Tommy, Timmy, Amber, Ashley, Elizabeth. All these names get depicted with a capital E, J, M, all these things. But imagine every time that they name you Jaquan, it's with a capital J, it's with a capital Q. Every time they put Tyrese or Terrell or Tyrone, it's with a capital T. Every time they put Lamonte, it's with a capital L, with a capital M. Montez, it's with a capital M. Damien, it's with a capital D or lowercase d, lowercase m. And every time that they put your name down, for whatever reason, it's with a lowercase, but with everybody else that doesn't look like you, it's with a capital. And you sit there and you're like, are they disrespecting me? Do they see me as lesser than? And so you have to come to a realization of this dynamic of God with a big G and these pagan gods, these heathen gods, these false gods with a little g. Why is it that our gods are deemed as little g gods? Why is that? Why in this society are the Jewish gods considered supreme, superior, the ultimate creator? Why does Yahweh get the title God? Why does he become the exact personification of what a God is? I want you to really ask yourself, in this society, God is depicted as a white man. And if God is depicted as a white man, that means everything in terms of freedom, justice, equality, prosperity, it is signified to him. So if you want the true American dream, if you want true equality, if you want true civil rights, you have to submit yourself and bend the knee to God. Whereas you have demonized your own traditions and your own spirituality and your own gods and entities. And so these are gods with a little g. And you have been programmed to disgrace your heritage and your ancestry. And you are willing to even give up your name and identity and mother tongue just so that you can fit into their squares, in their circles, in their triangles. And it goes even deeper than this, because you will even treat your brother and sister, your fellow black people, as shit. You will tell one of your loved ones how much you don't like them. You will dislike them to such a point, you might step over them just so that you can love people that depict God. What if sometimes the reason why you're so jealous of your loved ones, or you're jealous of a fellow black person, is because of that slave mentality? Because you don't want to see them grow more than you do, because you don't even see value in yourself. Because if you saw yourself as God, if you saw yourself as a divine creator, a divine source, you will have no problem with seeing somebody who also reflects you as a divine source and prospering in life. Because as they prosper, you prosper as well. When they get bread, you get bread as well, whether you know them or not. They are a reflection of you. This is why some people, when they are within a certain environment, such as the hood or the projects, when they get on the come up and when they start upgrading their life, they have to leave that environment immediately because the people around them, they're not on that frequency. And if they stay in that environment with such a low frequency, they might get taken advantage of. They might get sabotaged. Their career and their money might get sabotaged. Even worse, something might happen to them and their family. So they have to leave and get up out of there because of the envy that is remaining within that environment, the jealousy that is remaining within that environment, because those people don't value themselves enough to do better for themselves. And you chose to do that, but because you have this Cain and Abel connection, this Cain and Abel dynamic, you have to get up out of there before Cain starts getting ideas. You have to get up out of there before Cain starts to find a tool, a strategy, a plan. So really think on that. If you don't even see God in yourself, you're not going to treat your fellow brethren as such. Because imagine you treating your fellow neighbor or somebody that you don't even know that looks like you and reflects you, but you understand God dwells within them. You will tell them hello. You wouldn't hold back a smile. If they accidentally ran into you, you wouldn't be so bitter and hostile, because Caucasians can step on your shoe and you can give them a big old smile and say, oh, that's okay. They could have fucked up your Jordans. That's okay. They're just shoes. The moment a black person looks at you wrong, you're ready to fight. That's telling. It tells a lot about your character and who you are as a person. The moment that I say I'm God, the number one people to fight it are black people. Nigga, you ain't God. I'll talk about this in my past podcast episode, if y'all listen to it, of this idea of not being God because of your current predicament in your environment, in your mentality. All this plays a hand in how you see yourself. If you don't see yourself as God, if you don't see yourself as the literal centerpiece of your own reality, you're going to have a very hard time changing it, because you're going to be blaming everything outside of yourself for why you are where you are. You have to sit down with yourself and really strategize, whether it's for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, and continue every single day strategizing where are you going to be in the next 2 to 4 years? Where are you going to be by the end of the year? And what do you have to do day by day? What habits do you have to produce day by day to get there? Is it just something as simple as doing easy 50 to 100 push-ups a day? That builds discipline, that builds strategy, that builds consistency, that builds persistence. You could be sick as hell, but you're still going to do those 50, 100, or 200 push-ups a day. You could be sick as hell, but you're still going to read that book. You're still going to read that chapter, whether it's 5 pages, 10 pages, whatever the case may be. You have to build a strategy for yourself. You have to build a plan. You have to set a standard for yourself and not back down from that standard. When you go to work and you are working for somebody else and you are under the time of somebody else, somehow you value their time more than you value yours. You will never go below the standard if you can get away with it. You will never go below the standard of what your superior or your team lead, what they expect from you. You will never go below it. But whenever it comes to you, whenever it hits that 5 to 9, whenever, however much time that you might have on your hands, whether it's 30 minutes to an hour to 2 to 3 hours, you could take 2 hours out of your day, every day, focusing on your personal dream, working on your personal goal. And all it takes every day is for you to just really be strategic. Put your phone down, turn the TV off, and just focus on you. But you have been programmed to see yourself as lesser than. The moment that you talk about any type of ideas of getting out of the hood, of pursuing an opportunity to working for somebody for a lot of money, of being a filmmaker, of being a content creator, of being one of the best artists out there, being the next person to win a Grammys, everybody's going to look down on you and laugh at you. I could sit here right now and prophesy, or rather testify. I could sit right here and testify that nobody that I went to school with would even imagine the platform and influence that I have today. Nobody from my family, nobody that I grew up with, nobody that I went to school with, none of them could fathom the person that I am today. If I was to tell them in the 8th and 9th grade that I was going to be a social media influencer, they would laugh in my face. They would tell me to my face, Tyrone, nobody's trying to follow you. You're not that entertaining. You're cringeworthy. You're weird. You're boring. Who would want to follow you? And a lot of y'all hold yourselves back because you continue the echoes of your haters. Those people may no longer be in your life, but that echo, that ring, it still circulates in your mind to where you feel like what they say still holds weight. What your mother said, what your father said, what your ex-friend said, even some friends that you proclaim to be friends. Their ideas and their thoughts still ring in your head, and you have to literally detox from that. You have to literally get rid of those lingers in your mind. You have to get rid of those voices in your head. You have to shut off. You have to put these voices on mute and really assess who you are. If you know you can do it, do it. If you know you can achieve it, do it. Nobody is stopping you but yourself. And for whatever reason, this goes back to how you see yourself and how you value yourself. How in the hell could you value something from somebody else that they never even achieved their goals and their dreams? There are some people who you are taking the advice of from somebody that has to work 2 to 3 jobs just to maintain a living. And this is the person that you're going to learn from on how to maintain your life and how to pursue the life that you want to live. There are people out here where if you want that athletic body, if you want to look like Michael B. Jordan or Jonathan Majors or The Rock, there are people out here who are scrawny or fat as hell, and they're going to judge you about how many times you go to the gym. Why would you want to go to the gym 2 times a day? Why would you want to go to the gym 5 times a day, 6 times a day? You need to let your body rest. They don't even look an ounce of ripped or athletic. They don't wake up every day early in the morning and run 2 miles. But they have, for whatever reason, they have space. They have time to tell you what you need to do with your body and how you need to maintain your health. Really sit down with yourself. Really reassess your life and really look at your habits, because the only thing that is holding you back is you. Truly sit down and think about all the things that you could have achieved, all the people that you could have reached out to, all the jobs that you could have applied for, the interviews that you could have had if you would have just believed in yourself. A lot of us, we want to be spoon-fed. A lot of us want to be spoon-fed our opportunities and our achievements. And we don't want to pursue or look or seek for the things that we truly desire in life. For the platform that I have, there are a lot of people who never believed in my platform. I can't tell you how many times people told me when I was at 10,000 followers, when I was at 5,000 followers, 2,000 followers, that this type of brand that you're going for, Tyrone, will never work. You think you're going to achieve a platform or an audience with this type of branding, with this type of niche? When I was stuck and stagnant at 18,000 followers or 20,000 followers, there were people that were telling me, maybe you need to change it up. Maybe it's because of your delivery. When there were times where I would lose 200 to 300 followers weekly, and I would go down from being at 20,000 back to 19,000. Maybe you need to change your delivery up, Tyrone. Maybe you need to change up the system and the messaging, Tyrone. I kept going and I kept achieving and I kept at it with whatever I was pursuing, and I tried out different systems and different strategies and continue with that persistence within content creating. I continue with that persistence with my video editing. I continue with that persistence of who I am, and I never changed up who I am for somebody else that wasn't even doing what I was fucking doing. And I might be a little irritated because there were people who were in my life and they didn't trust my blueprint. People that I allowed to suck up all of my time daily. Not once did they ever took into accountability of how much time they were wasting. Now, I'm not going to blame it all on them. It's all on me on how much time that I gave them. But I'm just saying the audacity of people who aren't even in my fucking lane, who aren't even doing what I'm doing, trying to tell me how I need to attract an audience, how I need to change up my delivery. Mind you, these people didn't even support my content. These people that I allowed to be in my circle, they didn't watch my content. They didn't watch my YouTube videos. There was a time where this girl that I was talking to, she used to support my content. But as time went on and she starts to lose respect for me in this relationship that we had, she stopped watching my content. She stopped watching my videos. There was a time where she told me up front to my face, I don't watch your YouTube or your TikToks anymore because they're not entertaining. They don't do it for me anymore, and you need to stop talking about religion. Imagine that. Imagine if I had stopped talking about religion for good. Imagine if I would have listened to her and I would have just hung it up. Partly that was the reason why I stopped going on YouTube, because I gained my platform to begin with talking about those type of topics. And so then I would try and mix it up with talking about relationship stuff because I thought that was more relatable to people. And I didn't put it to my mind that there are people out there that need my voice. There are people out there that need my philosophy, that need the way that I think. There are people out there still to this day that need my way of thinking, the way that I break things down, that whenever something comes out concerning deconstructing or when something comes out about religion, oh, I want to hear what Tyrone has to say about this. I want to hear what the Omnis Roan has to say about this. And I am grateful that I have created a platform to where people can come to my platform and they can get a different outlook of life. I am not the average entertainer. I am not the average content creator. I am not the average voice that you will hear for reasoning. You're not going to find another man like me on this platform. You're not going to find somebody who is very strategic and holds their words true to who they are concerning their belief system and what they see and how they see the world in this life. You're not going to find a handsome black man with a beautiful afro, with some lovely lips, with a pentagram around his neck, very comfy with his black turtleneck, who is always going to be considered a devil worshiper or a Satanist, and takes pride in being labeled as these things because I understand the bigger mission. I see the bigger picture. Whenever I get labeled in these things, whenever I get slander, and whenever I wake up early in the morning and I check my DMs and I get all these negative text messages, I smile. And I even feel more love for myself because I understand that if I'm not shaking the systems of other people, I'm not doing the right thing. If I'm not making people mad, and it's not intentional, but if I'm not making people mad, I'm not doing the right thing. If I don't have any critics in my life, maybe I'm not giving enough content, good enough content for it to be critiqued. If people aren't talking about my platform, whether good or bad, maybe I'm not making good enough content. And so I had to change up the blueprint. I had to change up the platform. I had to change up how I was directly coming at these topics because I would kind of just be a little on the sideline when it came to Jesus. And it didn't take until I put my foot on this person's neck and I told the world, I do not need your Jesus, that all of a sudden all eyes suddenly began to become on me. Because who are you as a black man to say that we don't need Jesus? Who are you as a black man to say that we are more than that? Who are you to say it in the way that you do and style it in the way that you do, and you make it look good and you make it look cool and you make it look digestible? This is very uncomfortable for a lot of black people to have this conversation about not needing Jesus, which was the topic of discussion in my last podcast episode. And because a lot of us have been conditioned to not like ourselves and to hate ourselves, we don't mind just being comfortable seeking God outside of ourselves. But the answers to our problems start within ourselves. The answers to our problems start with reading a book every day, whether it's, listening to an audio book every day. If you have to get into the system or the habit of just reading a book, you could just start with 5 minutes, 10 minutes a day. And that's already more than what the average person has already done. That's already more than what the average person has done. But really, really think about this and process this to yourself. That this society does not want you as a black man or a woman to see yourself as God. This is why they demonized our gods. And they deem our gods as demons and devils. And our spirituality and our spiritual practices as devil worship and Satanism. And if that's what it is, then that's what it has to be. If you want to proclaim my gods who look like me and my ideas and my way of life as being of the devil, then so be it. I will wear my horns proud and strong. I will take up my pitchfork and lead the army. The great falling away is happening whether you like it or not. And rightfully so, the great fall away shall happen. Why? Because a lot of us are seeing through the lies. A lot of us are seeing through the bullshit. And rightfully so. And you may not like it. You don't have to like it. You may can't imagine or fathom you leaving the faith. Just give it time. I will say that we are living in a time in a generation where a lot of us are truly now accepting the reality of different perspectives of life. And the reason for that is because we live in a time where we are given access to information and technology at a faster rate than our parents and grandparents. Imagine the technology that our grandparents and parents could have had, given this time. If they would have had the same access to information as we do, our grandparents could have been the first agnostic or atheist in the family. They could have been the first people to reinstate their African or spiritual traditions and their automatic and birthright connection to God. They could have been out of the church 2 generations ago, maybe even 3. Had they have been given the access to this information. And yet in the church, they teach us to never question God. You better not ever in your goddamn life question God. That was something that was always emphasized without even it being said, is you better not ever in your goddamn life question God. You can have questions, but don't question God. You can even have questions to a point where you feel skeptical, but you better not ever search for them answers. The answers you can only get is here in this pulpit. And it's so interesting. Anytime that I had a question, my parents, or specifically my mom, would always say, I don't know. So if you don't know, and if the pastors don't know, how else am I going to get these answers? Grandmama don't know, granddaddy don't know, my uncles don't know. How am I supposed to get these answers? And it's because of my curiosity. And it's because of me being open-minded and willing to hear other perspectives from other people that I have come to the conclusion of where I am today. Just in general. And a lot of Christians, a lot of black Christians, even for that matter, are scared. You are scared to ask questions. You are scared to go down the rabbit hole because you fear that you might lose your faith. You fear that the person that you have already been questioning to be real or not might not be real. And that frightens you because you have dedicated your whole life to this. A lot of people have dedicated 20 to 30, 40 years of their life to this. And if you was to find out tomorrow that Jesus doesn't exist and Jesus isn't coming back, that might completely tear you apart. and that might be something that you are afraid of, is to lose your mind, to lose your sanity, even more so lose relationships, your contact with family, your contact with people that you love, because you know how deep it is. And I'm not afraid to lose friends. I've lost so many in my life. I'm not afraid for family members to no longer contact me. Most of y'all I don't even see until a funeral. So do what you need to do, but the truth still remains. Say what you need to say, but the truth still remains. For you to advance in life is that you have to take back your power. If you have to embody the devil, if you have to be satanic, if you have to become the goddamn rebel, they're going to demonize you whether you like it or not. They're going to paint you as the bad guy whether you like it or not. They're going to make you the villain whether you like it or not. And if you're going to paint me as the villain, make sure my pockets are full too. Make sure I'm the rich villain, the multi-billionaire, the highly arrogant, narcissistic, whatever you have to label me as. Make sure my pockets are full too while you're labeling me as the villain too. Make sure I'm in that big high mansion on the top of the hill. Make sure you paint all that out as well. Because if you're going to paint me as the bad guy for asking the questions that you failed to answer, and matter of fact, even more so that you failed to acknowledge, that's on you. My phone going off. And this goes very deep. How I've been saying, they have conditioned us to be little G's. When I was talking about with this black Jesus and white Jesus dynamic, it's very interesting that in this society, we have never been given a black Jesus movie. And it's convenient for white people to say, oh, it doesn't matter what he looks like, while he still remains white with pale skin and blue eyes. Oh, it doesn't matter what he looks like. And they think the progression in these Jesus movies is now he has a bit of a darker pale tone, a little bit of a darker brown hair and brown eyes. And they think that's the progression with the depiction and imagery of Jesus. But these white people who have given you Christianity, they could never fathom a black God. Even more so, they couldn't fathom God as black. Because what does black God even mean? What does a black church really mean? What does black Christianity even means? It's like a inferior version of the original, like a remix. But it's interesting that in this society, anytime that we are even given an inch to introducing black Jesus, it never gets taken seriously. The first time that I even heard about black Jesus, aside from within my household, was Adult Swim, the show Black Jesus. Then long after that, we get Clarence. And unfortunately, that movie flopped. And it flopped for two reasons. One, it wasn't promoted as much as the rest of the movies. And two, it was promoted very horribly. It was promoted in a way where the trailer was allowing people to misunderstand the message of the movie. And I don't know if that was on the production's fault or if that was on the movie industry's fault, but it didn't portray the message that it was actually portraying in the movie when you watch the movie, because the movie is being depicted as some type of comedy film and this man's trying to be like Jesus. So that's already unappealing to most Christian audiences. Whereas if you were to add the black Jesus feel to it, if you would have added more of the dramatic feel to that, it may have appealed more to a black audience. It would have done better for a black audience and for black churches. Black churches could have took trips to the movie theaters like they do for Tyler Perry movies back in the day. So it doesn't make sense how strategically they made that movie flop. I'm willing to bet that they strategically made that movie flop. They strategically made that movie unappealing to black people because it was a powerful message. There was a very powerful message in that movie. I'm not going to tell you what it is. You have to watch it for yourself. And even recently now, you have Cynthia Erivo, this beautiful black woman, and she is a part of LGBT, and she is going to be playing Jesus in a musical. So you have these references here where this black Jesus is never going to be taken in a serious light. It's never going to be represented in this world because this society, this system has its God. It's already been structured. The framework is already there, and they're telling you you can't change it. You cannot change this framework. This is God. So you can have your little black Jesus, you can have your little black gods here and there, but this is God. This is who we hold true to be God, and you have to fall in alignment and compromise. And so I have these conversations with black people, and it's interesting how we see God. It's interesting how we even use the term God. I'm beginning to get into a point of just not even using the word at all. Because when you study the history behind that word, when you study how people even use the word, they are also excluding the beautiful, divine, feminine. They're excluding the mother. And that's a problem. Everything in this world has masculine and feminine energy. Everything reproduces after its own, as I always say. And if you have a God who has a son and doesn't have a wife to produce that son, there is a big gap in the Trinity. Something is missing. And black people, Christians, they have been conditioned to find any type of way possible to make sense of this gap, to make sense of this big ass hole in divinity, to such a point that people will even put themselves in the hole and be like, I'm God's wife. I'm God's bride right here. He run through me. He fill me up. Y'all are sick. Y'all, in the fact that y'all can't accept that there could possibly be a mother goddess, that it makes sense for there to be a feminine and a female counterpart to God, is very telling, even in the system and dynamic of this religion, that you can't accept a woman having divine authority. You can't accept a woman having the ounce of imagery for divinity. You can't accept calling upon the mother goddess. And I've said this in a reel before, or in a TikTok, and all these Christians come out the blue talking about, you don't know what you're talking about, God. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what you're talking about. But hear me out. I told a set of church folk, start out your prayer with, we thank you, mother goddess. And watch everybody just, oh my God. Oh my, what did he say? Oh, they will cut you off so quick. They will end that prayer so quick. And you'll see right then and there how westernized they are. How is it that we can start out a prayer to, we thank you, Heavenly Father, but we can't acknowledge the Holy Mother? That doesn't even make sense. The mother is the nurturer. She's the one that gives nutrients. If you're going to pray to any type of force, it should be the mother. Who's the ones most likely cooking in the kitchen as it is? It's going to be the women. Who's out here setting up Thanksgiving and all the big feasts and all the big dinners that y'all have with your family? Is most likely the women. So wouldn't you like to give dedication to that divine feminine energy that has allowed y'all to have the food? What are we doing here? Think about that. And so, to give a disclaimer as well, I don't believe in any particular gods or goddesses. I believe that all gods are created from the mind. All gods and goddesses are created in the image of man and not the other way around. I do acknowledge that there is a divine consciousness, that there is a divine power, a divine order, infinite consciousness that we cannot put a label to, that we cannot call specifically by a particular name, but that we are all direct extensions and personifications of. And the only way for people to truly try to connect or understand this energy is that they have to personify it. They have to add anthropomorphism to this. God can be angry. God can be happy. God can be sad. God can regret. God has wrath. God has emotions. God can walk. God has a throne. I asked myself, why the hell does God have a throne? Have you ever thought about that? God is depicted in the Bible as having a throne. He is seated on his throne. And some people will say, well, it's to signify his authority, but it's also to signify rest. Why is this man sitting on a throne, watching the world? And he must be watching the world on this big ass flat screen TV with people around him, praising him and glazing him 24/7. And that's their depiction of God. And you're fine with that. It's a weird depiction. But I don't even really know how to end out this podcast episode other than look in the mirror and start deifying yourself. If there's anything that I could tell you to end off on this podcast episode, is for you to start recognizing the value within yourself. Love yourself enough to stop worshiping a God. Love yourself enough to stop giving praise to any entity outside of yourself. Love yourself enough to stop putting yourself in places of compromising and bending the knee to somebody else's authority or to somebody else's perception of God when you know it's not true. And I'm not telling you to cause problems in the family. I'm not telling you to cause problems with your loved ones. But there has to come to a point where you have to stand up for what you believe in. There has to come a point in your life where you have to say, enough is enough. I can no longer suppress who I am for you. And it might feel bad at first. You might get frustrated and irritated at first, but it will feel so good internally for you to just be who you are. To let down that mask and just be. It will do you wonders. And so they will always try to label you as the little G because maybe they're threatened by you. Maybe they tell you not to question, and maybe they try to cast you off, and they try to ridicule you, and they try to demonize you because they know the truth for themselves and they aren't willing to accept it. So they have to demonize you. They have to lead people with propaganda and these distractions and red herrings so that they won't acknowledge the truth, so that their brains won't start operating on a different level. Think about that. And that's all the time that I have for today. And this is probably one of my shortest podcast episodes as well. But I truly appreciate if you have gotten to this point with this podcast episode. I highly appreciate everybody who supports my content and supports my platform and continues to support my platform. As you know, I do have my podcast. I will be posting weekly again because I went for so long without doing a podcast episode because I was just trying to find the right people and the right occasion to make it like a real special podcast panel for episode 100. And I'm just like, fuck it. I'm just going to be doing me, and I'm just going to keep on doing my solo podcast episodes until the right time comes for me to have that panel, because I feel like having these long sit downs and these talks is needed for somebody out there in this world, for them to understand who they are. And there is somebody out there who is in need of my voice, who is in need of hearing that you don't have to phantom or fantasize about somebody loving you to love yourself. You don't have to go to a church. You don't have to submit to a Bible. You don't have to submit to a Jesus to love yourself. Just love yourself. The church and your family and people who are religious have told you to suppress the things that you love about yourself, to cast away the things that you have loved about yourself, and it's only caused you more misery. And when you're going through that misery, they tell you, oh, that's just the Lord testing you. That's just a part of the transformation. And it could be something as easy as you just like to style your hair a certain way. Certain things that you used to love to watch and entertain, and they have told you that, oh, that is idolatry. That is devil work, devil stuff. Just be yourself. If who you are is not causing harm to anybody else and is not causing harm to yourself, do what is best for you. Do what you love to do. Do what makes you the most creative person in the world. Do what casts your light to the world the brightest. And if anybody else have something to say about it, fuck them. So that's what I leave with you for today. Hope everybody have a good day, evening, afternoon, whenever you're listening to this. This has been episode 102.